Welcome to the Buddhistisches Tor Berlin podcast. Join us for live recordings from classes, insightful talks, and guided meditations.
So for those of you that are in the WhatsApp group, I kind of jokingly posted a little blurb about today, my top 10 tips for the spiritual life. It did sound mildly ridiculous, but I did it kind of as a joke, but then I thought, actually the reason I wanted to do this is because, if I'm honest, I think things have been slightly challenging for me at the moment, and when you're in that kind of period, you kind of fall back, or you start looking towards what actually works, what actually works for your practice, for your life. So it started out as a joke. Sometimes it's a bit like jokes in general, isn't it? Sometimes someone says a joke, but actually they're really trying to tell you a point. It kind of, so that's how it kind of unfolded. So obviously these little top 10 tips, it's not an exhaustive list. It's just what came to mind, and maybe it's of some help, maybe it's interesting, we'll see. Good. So the first tip is don't try and be spiritual. Initially I was thinking of in terms of this with meditation, which I'll get into in a minute, but I don't know. Maybe it needs a bit of unpacking. I don't think there's anyone here doing it today, but sometimes, especially in a place like Berlin, you can develop a kind of spiritual persona which kind of makes you special, and actually it ends up being a hindrance. You feel like I'm kind of special, I'm slightly superior to everybody else now, and no one's doing it here, which is good, but there's been a number of times when people have sat in meditation posture while you're giving a talk, and it's just really weird. It's like a weird thing to do. And I thought, why? Okay, we're in a Buddhist center, maybe they think that's like a good thing to do. And I think when I was giving a talk quite a long time ago, I was a bit reactive, if I'm honest, and probably a bit naughty, but this one person was there and they had their eyes closed, and every now and then they'd grimace. If I'd say something slightly weird or something, they kind of go, twitch a bit. So I thought, I don't know, I was a bit bad. But then I gave an example of we were talking about hatred. So I gave an example of, I used to go to like these jungle clubs, anyone that knows me, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I used to go to jungle raves when I was younger, and there used to be this thing where people would have brand new white trainers, and if somebody stepped on their trainer, they'd get hit with a bottle in the back of their head, and it would be on, And I did it deliberately to tell this story, and they were like, really and it kind of killed the spiritual thing. And they never came back. I'm sorry that happened. It wasn't deliberate, but it kind of... Anyway, so you can do this whole thing, can't you? Especially in Berlin, you can be a special kind of person with your groovy, special stuff. Don't do that. It makes it a lot harder to practice the spiritual life because you've got this massive ego block in front of you as well. So the reason I thought of it as being related to meditation is, like Lalitaratna was saying when we were in here. Those of you that are in the main shrine room, it's just awareness. Just do it. Just like you go to the gym, like you with whatever you do, whether you're cooking, dancing, painting, studying, working, you just do it, don't you? You don't think, I'm gonna do this now. Or maybe you do. I've been going to the gym recently, and there's some extraordinary things. Like, it's just so great, just like there's the persona that comes with it. I probably do that as well, frankly. But anyway, so just don't do it. It makes it a lot easier. If you just do it like it's... How to say it? So personally, last night we have a Friday night meditation class, and it was the same last week. It's quite good. I've just turned up, and somehow I'm just like, just do it. Just forget about who you're supposed to be. I'm a card-carrying Buddhist, blah, blah, blah. I'm supposed to be doing something. Just forget all that and just do it. You don't need to add an extra layer of kind of personality to it. So it's a bit nuanced as well, though, I think, because actually it's not actually a bad thing to identify yourself, for example, as a Buddhist, if you are. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad. It's a good. For me, it took me a long time to get to that point. Actually, I was completely resistant. I was like, I'm definitely not telling anyone I'm a Buddhist, because in my mind that conjured up pictures of kind of people who'd given up on life, that were kind of couldn't handle things. I was just like, I don't know. I just didn't like the image, so I wouldn't tell anyone I was a Buddhist. But then I just realised, this is all I do these days. I guess I'm a Buddhist. So I had to kind of be honest and identify and say, this is what I'm doing with my time. I'm a Buddhist. So it's like the Buddha says with everything with Buddhism, it's like a raft. It's a means to an end. Yeah. So it can be helpful. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the first one, yeah? Don't try and be spiritual, just do the practices and be yourself, which is a lot easier said than done, I know, but one of the things that I think attracted me to this particular tradition is our own founder and teacher really emphasized this business of becoming what he calls a true individual, yeah? Maybe we assume we are true individuals. I would say probably none of us are in that sense. I certainly am not. We're very group orientated. It doesn't take much to get me into kind of reactive group, or I hope people like me. I hope, this whole kind of... So his whole emphasis was on becoming a true individual, yeah? So it's hard work. It's a lifetime's work. But if you just do the practices, I think, sincerely, and you try and just be yourself, whatever that means, then you're probably onto a winner. Yeah? So, okay, that's the first one. So the second one is have faith. So have faith in the sense of it won't come quickly. Yeah. We love our techniques in this day and age, don't we? Like YouTube's full of we've got everywhere's full of all the optimizing techniques to do this and the real way to do that. And the truth is, it's a long game, isn't it? It takes decades it's like a lifetime commitment. So you need some kind of faith in that journey. You need some kind of sense of the bigger picture, yeah? Especially when times get tough. You need some sense of like, why am I doing this? Which is a lot easier said than done, like everything on this list. And the word for faith in Buddhism is Shraddha, yeah? Which is a great word. Faith is just the translation we have, but Shraddha can mean something like placing your heart upon, yeah? Confidence in. It's a kind of... it's faith because it's emotive, it kind of moves you, but it might not necessarily be what we think of as faith a lot of the time, It's not just a big emotional kind of heart-opening, the Buddha, I'm going to go towards enlightenment, faith. Sometimes it might feel like that, and that can feel really good. It might be an idea, yeah? It can just be like an idea. You might not feel much, but you kind of intellectually, you're like, this makes sense. This really does make sense if you're a thinking type, let me put this together and go in this direction. And maybe my life really is about growing, and maybe my life really is about being alive while I'm breathing, like fully here, discovering what I'm actually doing rather than just going on a conveyor belt through my years. But there's also sometimes what gets called faith of the legs, so you have the head, heart, and legs. And I would say this, for me at the moment anyway, this has been very crucial. Yeah, it's like sometimes you don't feel it, you don't even think it, but somehow you just keep going. Yeah, you could say that dogma, you could call it a religious attitude, maybe it is, but you just keep going. Yeah, and I think a lot of that, I'll go into this a bit later. A lot of that is down to friendship as well, because sometimes you don't really know what you're doing or why you're doing it anymore. But you have people around you that they're not telling you to do anything, not even saying, "Oh, you're great." They're just reminding you of where you are, yeah. And that can help your faith, you might say. And there's a big, especially in the Zen tradition, there's this whole business of what they sometimes call great faith, great doubt. Yeah, not 100%. I'm not claiming to be any expert on this, but I think it's a real thing. Yeah, so. In my own experience, like I've been away for a few months and I was co-leading this ordination course, yeah? So people train for ordination, they get ordained, they get a new name, there's a whole thing. So we were away for 3 months, yeah? And it's been very strange coming back. It's almost like, I don't quite know what happened, but my kind of practice went a bit sideways, yeah? It was like, I just thought, what have I'll tell you why this happened, yeah? I was thinking, have I actually achieved anything in my spiritual life at all? Or am I literally just where I was 20 more plus years ago? And the reason that came about is because there was quite a number of guys on this course that were just simple, like a couple of them, like super simple, no bells and whistles people, not fancy people. But I was doing their meditation interviews, so we had a 3-week silent period, and they come to me with their meditation experiences. And they'd be like, yes, I'm like, then there's the universe, and I'm just completely dissolving, but then I come back, and then there's the bliss, and then I've got this insight, and I'm just like, bro, I can't help you. I'm like, I'm supposed to be, I'm just here to listen now, yeah? So you're over there, where am I? Yeah, what have I done? Like, I'm like Mr. leading this thing, and it was a bit of a thing. I just thought, wow, what's happened to me? What's the point? Have I done anything with this, yeah? It created a doubt, yeah? It creates like a serious doubt. That was part of it, but there was other things in my life. I just thought, what have I done? And sometimes I think that doubt is, it gets talked about in Buddhist circles like, you're in doubt, yeah? But I think by definition, when you're experiencing doubt, that's the whole point. You don't really know what's going on, yeah? It's like, you can sometimes say, oh yeah, I'm not sure, but I think I'm in doubt and I'm going to work through this and I've got a technique or I'm going to find my way through. When you're really in doubt in the spiritual life, you don't really know it. It more manifests as like, I should do something else, this is pointless, blah, blah, blah. But what it does, I think, if you stay with it, it will sound a bit dramatic, but metaphorically speaking, maybe literally, metaphorically, it will bring you to your knees. Yeah, you get knocked down a peg or two and you're there like, boy, what am I doing? Who do I think I am? Like really, like no joke. You just think, wow, I've wasted, what am I doing? I'm kind of play acting. But then what happens then is because it's all been stripped away, is something real steps into the picture, yeah? There's not so much of you and your ego and that I'm a Buddhist, and then something real steps in, which is, I don't know, you kind of, all the other stuff just goes, and you're just left with your raw experience again, and you ask yourself, well, at this point, this is where friends come in, because I'm very grateful to my friends recently, especially Padmasaga and Artiketu, who's not here. And it's not like people have been telling me, oh, you're great, all this kind of stuff. It's more just conversations about, for me, it's ended up as like, what do I think this is about? Yeah. So on one hand, part of me has thought, oh, the spiritual life is about becoming kind of not Superman, some kind of elevate myself above suffering. I'm like flying through the universe, just like, as like that. I'm going to turn gold and it's all going to be... And I'm like, wow, I'm a very, very long way away from there, yeah? Like, extraordinarily. And I don't even know if in terms of like insight and all this stuff, how can you measure it? But then I realized, I thought, have I changed at all over the years? And then friends have helped me realize, not by saying it, but, oh yeah, you have changed. Yeah, a lot has changed. And I think, in a way, sometimes you have to find a different vision of what you think this is about. Yeah, because if I think of the goal of the spiritual life is becoming super insightful and flying through meditation and being this kind of person, I think, wow, I shouldn't even bother. But if I feel like, oh, my vision is to become to love people, then I feel like, oh no, I am committed to that. I'm as ragged as it gets sometimes and as weird as it gets, I am actually committed to that. And I put spade work into that, and it has manifested, so I can trust that. So that leads to faith again, yeah? You're just like, yeah, I'll just get on with it again. So yeah, faith is a big area. It's a big area, and sometimes you will experience doubt, and sometimes it will feel like pointless, and you may as well just skip off this whole business of growing and spiritual anything. It's a waste of time. And maybe that's not a bad thing, because then you end up back to what your vision of it is, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, you have to find, again, it's down to maybe perhaps becoming more of an individual. Yeah, you have to find out what your individual goal is, and maybe it's true for every tradition, but especially for Buddhism, it's so multifaceted. There's so many ways you can talk about it, depending on, and it might change. You know, one year might be you want to manifest love. Yeah, you want to really become a loving person. Yeah, and you're working on that. The next year you might be super inspired by meditation, like and there's all these different Buddhas and there's all these different facets of the Buddha, which can allow you, I think, to enter from different angles. Yeah. Okay. The third thing is enjoy it. Yeah. Enjoy the spiritual life. Don't do it as some kind of solemn duty. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it is like that, frankly. Especially anyway. But yeah, don't just be don't be a miserable Buddhist, is what I'm saying. And there's many of them, and sometimes I'm one, so don't look at me. I'm not a shining example sometimes, but that's just I blame my kind of genetic, cultural background, somber, whatever. But don't be a miserable Buddhist, yeah? It's not a good look. Because, you have to sometimes you get grumpy and life's not so great, but then you look around at why you're doing this and you see the people you're with. You see some amazing people. Yeah, sometimes it's not particularly sexy and you think, I could certainly be living a more flamboyant, exciting life at times, yeah? But then you actually look at the people you're with, well, these people are amazing. They're really amazing. And this is amazing. And many people go through their kind of trip, and then they come and they're like, oh, what's actually important? What really, really matters? And you usually end up with simple things, don't you? Like, again, love, just trying to conduct yourself well, and wow, this is where are we? What's going on, kind of thing, yeah? You end up back there. So I figure you may as well just get on with it, and that's really the most important thing. So enjoy it, yeah? I mean, on the back of that, I think it's our duty, in a way, as Buddhists, to stay inspired. Yeah? A lot easier said than done. I keep saying this. Maybe it's my little meme or something, but you have to stay inspired, yeah? And it could come from anywhere. Yeah? It doesn't need to be... Again, this is about the whole thing of... you don't have to be you don't try to be spiritual. It's like, what actually inspires you? So for me, it's music, sometimes art, all kind of things, yeah? And I think you have to keep yourself vital and alive, and not unless you're very, very monastic-minded, not just funnel all of it into good things. You might, that sounds a bit wrong. Anyway, into what you think is a spiritual life should look like, yeah? Some dynamism in your character. Yeah? It's very easy. I mean, that's one of the things that I used to find slightly off-putting, if I'm honest, in Buddhist circles, which was just like, it does exist where you get this kind of low-level kind of slump going on, and I think, no, this is, yeah. So you have to find your inspiration, yeah. Okay, fourth one, short and simple. Look after your body, yeah. I'm getting into my mid-40s and paying the price for certain things, and it means, like my hip, for example, I haven't been able to do any formal sitting meditation for 4 months, yeah, which is wild. So I didn't look after it very well. So look after your body. It's just, and as you get older, it gets more complicated, doesn't it? So yeah, try and look after yourself, just to make life easier for yourself, yeah. I would say though, like, it's been interesting, like, because I've started enjoying doing exercise again, and it's like I used to have the thing where if I couldn't do it like I used to do it, I just get angry with myself. But actually, I'm kind of like, basically my life now is basically a consistent rotation of different pains and tendon problems and pulled muscles, and you just have to work. It's a workaround now. So for the next few decades, hopefully, it's going to be a workaround. I'm just going to work around all these pains and. Yeah, there's something to it. It's okay. Yeah. So maybe that leads fairly nicely on to the fifth one, which is don't give up. Yeah. So the Buddha's final words, I'm going to butcher this probably, but it's Apamadena Sampadeta. Does that sound good? Yeah, there you go. So sometimes that gets translated as with mindfulness strive on, yeah, which is not bad. It's more memorable. It is with mindfulness. Those are Buddha's dying words to his disciples, yeah, with mindfulness strive on. So striving is a big part of Buddhism, yeah. It's an active thing, yeah. You could say any spiritual life, any tradition, any genuine practitioner, it's an active life. And but it's not just mindfulness, because that's a shortened version of that translation. I was looking around, and in a way, there's different ways you can translate it, but maybe a more accurate but less memorable version is something like, you should obtain the success that comes through sobering up from your blind intoxication with perishable sense experience. Yeah? So it's about, it literally means something like, wake up, you drunks. Yeah? Something like that. You're drunk, wake up and attain, gain your success through that. You can see why the other one's more catchy, huh? With mindfulness strive on. It's a bit less of a mouthful. You can relate to that. But it's about the fact that we're kind of a bit lost in our sense experience, yeah? I certainly am. I'm like a pinball, you push things away, grab things towards you, end up in a whole drama, which goes on for like 40 years, 50 years, however many years. And the Buddha's saying, wake up. Yeah, just wake up to your craving, hatred, all this kind of stuff, yeah? So it has a kind of... it's not just mindfulness in the way we understand it in the modern West, I would say. I think it's fairly clear. It's not just that. It has an ethical tinge to it, yeah? It has a kind of ethical dimension to it, yeah? Like you're developing some kind of ethical backbone. You're aware, but there's a kind of... It's not just aware to be aware. You're aware, but there's also like, where am I going with this, yeah? Just taking you somewhere. So striving is really important, yeah? Many things are hard, aren't they? Giving birth, I've never done that, but apparently it's very hard. Training for the special forces in the army, I've never done that. It looks very difficult. Running ultra marathons, that looks really hard. Never done that. But the Buddha said in a way, well, he didn't say in a way, he said attaining enlightenment is the most difficult thing you can possibly do, yeah? So it's good to remember that sometimes, especially if you're a card-carrying Buddhist, because you can think, oh, this is really hard. It's like, yeah. So the founder of our tradition, the Buddha himself, said it's literally the hardest thing you can possibly imagine doing. Yeah. So it's good to remember that, isn't it? And sometimes that manifests itself in having to just bear things, which is exactly what we don't want to do sometimes. Things are painful sometimes, and we don't want them. We do not want them in our experience. We don't want them as part of our experience. And again, a large part of not giving up is bearing things, isn't it? You do have to bear things. There's a fantastic story in the scriptures of a character called Angulimala. Yeah, some of you Buddhists will know about this character. He was basically a serial killer. Yeah, maybe a ritualistic serial killer. And Mala is necklace, and Anguli, I'm assuming, is finger. So he was called Garland of Fingers. So he was in the forests in northern India. Some people think maybe it's part of a tantric practice, but he's basically, yeah, and then he chopped someone's finger off and he put it on the necklace, yeah. And he had something like 98 fingers, yeah, on his necklace, and the villagers were terrified of him, as you would be. They're like, there's this lunatic in the forest taking people's fingers, and yeah, and the Buddha just walks into the forest and they're like, oh, don't walk in there, But it's one of those things. So the Angulimala sees the Buddha. I think it's like Buddha's number 99. So he could make 100. He wants 100 fingers, yeah. And Buddha's there. He's ready to take the Buddha's finger. And it's a bit of a tangent, but it's a good story. Anyway, so he goes after the Buddha. He's running after the Buddha. The Buddha's just walking normally, and he can't catch him. He seems to be far behind him, yeah. And he shouts to the Buddha, "Stop!" And the Buddha turns around to him. And he says, "I have stopped." something like, you need to stop, or it's time you stopped, yeah? Anyway, long story short, Angulimala becomes a disciple of the Buddha, yeah? And attains enlightenment. So if it's possible for him, it's definitely possible for us, yeah? So he attains enlightenment. I don't know how this works. He just must have, I don't know, maybe he's a very committed individual. He's committed to his finger cause. And like, he got 99 fingers. He was very disciplined. And somehow the Buddha could talk to him. And somehow he had a passion. And I have no idea. Anyway, he attained enlightenment, apparently, yeah? But, as you would imagine, when Angulimala was going to the villages to beg for food, the locals were not too pleased to see him. Yeah, maybe friends of theirs had gone missing, so they throw stones at him. He had blood coming out of his head. You know, they really beat him up a lot, attack him, and it sounds like he knew that it was kind of deserved in a way. But he said to the Buddha, "This is really hard." And then I think the Buddha just said to him, "Bear it, Brahmin, bear it." Yeah, that was very simple. Bear it. I love that story. It's a great story because it's a kind of, I think it's a great story, especially if people have been to jail, been to prison. You know, like you're not doomed. Put it that way. Yeah, people do change. So I love that story. Yeah, and you have to bear things, don't you? I don't know. I bring up my dad. My dad's got some good qualities. And he just I joke about. I've made some jokes with him about like the Buddha saying that when the Buddha was old, he said it was like being held together. It was like an old cart being held together with bits of string. And my dad's like, yeah, it's like that. It's like he's like 80 and he cycles a lot. He fell off his bike, smashed his hip, had to have like whole metal put in, but he bears it. He doesn't complain. I don't know. I'm a bit jealous of him sometimes. I think, God, I wish I was like that. You know, he just doesn't. He's an old school generation. He's a bit more stoical, perhaps, but anyway. So sometimes you have to bear things, yeah. So yeah, don't give up. Leads on to number 6, which might seem like a paradox, which is surrender. Yeah, sometimes you just have to surrender and let go. But perhaps you can only truly surrender, as people say, if you've come to the end of your effort. Maybe it just has to happen. Maybe you can't just think your way through to it. You can't just say, oh, I know how to pace this, I need to let go, open to the bigger picture. It needs to be something that has needed to have happened in you first, I think, in order to be able to really surrender. But it's important nonetheless. And in a way, it's not the opposite. In order to surrender, you have to be aware. You have to be fully present. You have to be aware. And maybe it's a bit like the doubt thing. You know, there comes a certain point where you just let go, and something else comes into the picture. Maybe it's similar to doubt. I don't know. And maybe it's connected to faith as well. This whole business of surrendering. Yeah, maybe. Oh, anyway, but this whole business of surrendering is very dominant in what you might call Mahayana schools, like later Buddhism, Amitabha, Pure Land schools, yeah, which is, they're called like faith schools, yeah, where you're surrendering. But it's not like you switched off. You're not just like surrendering. You're surrendering, and there's an openness to it. And I'm not sure you can force it, actually, but it's an important part, I think, of the spiritual life. Some people can equate it to what they call spiritual death. Yeah, you've been going one way in a certain way, and you've developed a certain persona, and you developed maybe an ethical backbone, and all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then you just, something gives way. You're just like, what am I doing? And you kind of surrender, and something comes into your experience that wasn't there before. Maybe it was, but you couldn't see it or experience it, and it just kind of comes in sometimes the most sublime way, like a really... I mean, if I think of my own experience recently, when I was in Guhyaloka, this place where guys get ordained, my hip was killing me. If I'm honest, I don't want to over-dramatize it, but it's probably the worst. It's horrible. It went on for like 3 months. And I went through a period of like taking, I think, maximum dose anti-inflammatories every day for about 2 weeks. And then it was really weird. My heart started going weird, and I was lying in bed, and it was like, literally every time I'd fall asleep, I just would gasp, like, you know, when you kind of gasp for breath. And that just went on all night. I thought, maybe I'm dying. It really felt like it. I thought, because they say you're not supposed, I was taking anti-inflammatories for months, and I just thought, this isn't so good. But what was strange is like, when that comes in, where you just feel like, really, something's seriously wrong here, you just sort of let go, don't you? You just, at a certain point, you just, wow, what does that mean? And for me, it opened into, I don't know, it began with grief, but then turned into love. And it was like really unexpected. It wasn't what I was expecting at all. It was a kind of, ended up being something beautiful, yeah? Anyway, so anyway, I stopped taking the anti-inflammatories and I could breathe again, so it clearly was the anti-inflammatories. Anyway, just in case you're ever wondering if it happens to you. So surrender, I think it has to do, it's the same area of faith and doubt, yeah? Sometimes when you feel like you're at the end of things and you don't really know what you're doing anymore, it's all gone a bit sideways, sometimes things change off the back of that, like in an unexpected way, yeah? Okay, that's number 6, surrender. Number 7, I'm not going to say much about it, even though it's like a huge one, is ask for help, yeah? Sounds obvious, but sometimes we don't. We just kind of plow through. We don't ask for help, yeah? And sometimes I think when things go a bit sideways, you just need to ask people. And you don't get any advice. In fact, like they say, advice is normally useless. Yeah? You don't need advice from people. You just need a friend and someone to listen, yeah? And that does something. So ask for help. Number 8, this is just my list, yeah? It's not a special Buddhist list, it's just my list, yeah? Number 8, watch your mouth, yeah? Don't be a snake. There's a whole talk here. In fact, I gave 2 talks on this ordination course about this, because in Buddhism there's 4 speech precepts, yeah? Don't lie or bend the truth or not add things that might affect somebody else. Don't speak harshly, yeah? Don't be horrible to people. Nasty speech, don't do that. If you're going to speak, this is very difficult, try and say something helpful or not just complete nonsense. Very difficult, I know. But they are difficult, yeah? And the last one, try and bring people together, yeah? Rather than that delicious feeling that you get when you poison someone else's mind against someone else and you're like, you parted people. Don't do that. Yeah? Try and bring people together. It's so important, and I feel like one of the reasons there's 4 speech precepts, but there's only 3 for the body and 3 for the mind. The speech precepts, in a way, it's going to be the majority of us as Buddhists of what we're going to be doing on our waking day, on our moment-to-moment basis, is how we communicate with people, basically. Yeah, it's most of our time we're communicating with people or talking. Yeah, we're not often sitting there at least me, in higher states of reflection and da-da-da-da-da. We're not out beating people up and stealing from people, hopefully. I would imagine you lot, it does. You don't look like those kind of people. So the most of it's going to come from speech, isn't it? Yeah? And you create your world with your speech, don't you? You say something to somebody, you planted something in their mind, and now you're going to have to get the feedback. The loop comes back on you, then you're like, bastard. And then the loop gets bigger, and so you kind of create this bubble around yourself with your speech. Yeah? And I mean, I used to be so reckless with my speech, yeah? I used to pride myself on it, a bit like Donald Trump used to, remember when he had this reality TV show, what was it, Apprentice, something like this, yeah? And he'd be like, you're fired, and he'd just be really harsh with people, and I think, yeah, I'm a truth teller. But actually, it's not, it's not good. People don't like you, and anyway, so number 8, watch your mouth, yeah? It's really super, super important. All right, getting there, don't worry. Number 9, be generous with yourself, yeah? Just give your time and your energy. I think we get a little bit preoccupied with how much, what we can and can't do, in a way. At least I can, yeah? Sometimes I feel like I'm done. I don't want to see anybody. I'm like, but then I see somebody and I'm like, that was great, Or someone asks me to do something, I'm like, oh my God. this class, I don't do it. And I do it and I feel really good afterwards. And it's like, it's a whole thing, isn't it? It's like, just be generous, yeah? Again, very difficult, but in Buddhism, generosity is absolute bedrock, yeah? It's the foundation, like literally, I mean, even in terms of generosity is it, yeah? All the other stuff we can struggle with. We might say things in a certain way, or we might have certain thoughts or do certain things, but generosity is the absolute foundation, yeah? And this relates to the enjoy it bit, yeah? If you're going to offer your time, do it nicely. Do you know what I mean? Like, do it with a kind of spirit of like generosity. Like you want to help people, not, you know, 3 times I've cleaned the toilets and that doesn't hurt. That's not good. Yeah. So just give. Yeah. Generosity, and lastly, these are in no order. Yeah, it's just slightly chaotic. It doesn't matter. Anyway, lastly, and maybe most importantly, it relates to the other ones, is act well. Yeah. In a way, act well is basically what the Buddha's advising everyone to do on the basis of his insight into the nature of reality. Yeah? He's basically saying that everything in existence is made up of other things, which aren't really things. They're all processes, they're interlinked. They all come together, they arise for a time, then they dissolve, yeah? Everything. There's nothing fixed in the universe anywhere. And you can sculpt that process, that law of nature, by, if you want to be happy, yeah, the way you sculpt that is by acting well. Yeah, that's karma. Karma literally just means action. So you're basically sculpting your behavior for a desired outcome, which then relates to this faith business, yeah? It doesn't come today. Just, we can all be nice to each other and have a nice day and like being very generous today. I'm afraid this evening you're not going to probably feel like really good, yeah? But if you do that consistently, you will completely change your character and you will become a happier person, a kinder person, a wiser person. So acting well is basically you're acting in accordance with the nature of reality, according to the Buddha at least, yeah? That all things are impermanent, all things are changing all the time, and you can influence that change, yeah? You can affect that change by your actions, yeah? If you choose one line of action, like if you deliberately chose to just be the most rude, nasty person today, yeah? Everyone you spoke to, you were just like, oh God, and you're just horrible to everyone, then you could probably, and you did that for a week or a month, there'd be an effect, yeah? There'd be like, people would see you in a certain way and your whole life would change. And I would imagine probably not for the better. Yeah, you'd probably be like surrounded by mistrust and bad stuff. The Buddha's saying basically just do the opposite. It's very simple. It's very simple. Act well, yeah? Try and be generous. Try not to fiddle things in your way, or try and be kind, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff. Try and see what life is actually about, and your life, by default, the fruits of that will be happiness, yeah? So, again, very difficult to do, but life's not fair, is it? That's what it's one of those horrible things that I feel like I've been wrestling with. I continually go on a kind of life's not fair cycle, And I'm doing all right, I think, generally. It could be a hell of a lot worse, but life's not fair. Life is really not fair, and it never will be fair. And all you can really do in the midst of that reality is deal with your own mind, deal with your actions, do something to change your own response to the fact that it is what it is. And you can change in the midst of that. Yeah. So those are my 10 tips. And I think I'll leave it there.